First and foremost, I'd like to thank the exalted governor of the state of Minnesota for allowing me to take off my COVID-19 mask in order to speak to God's elect this morning in a Christian church. Their precious separation of church and state cliche, which is not in the Constitution, apparently is only applicable when they're trying to silence the church from rendering an opinion or speaking its position on social and cultural and governmental matters. Apparently, it inconsistently and hypocritically doesn't get applied when it comes to protecting the church from government overreach. And despite the fact that my mask is off, the governor is gracious and merciful because he doesn't have a mask-enforcing Gestapo of armed police busting up into this Christian building, into this sanctuary, to force me to either wear one or go to jail. Brothers and sisters, I don't know why Minnesota even has a state senate or a state house of representatives if a man who calls himself governor gets to bypass the entire legal process and simply throw down a signature, and just like that, massive amounts of God-given and constitutional rights are gone, taken away from human beings made in the image and likeness of God, and the people who lose those rights are clapping about it. Brothers and sisters, secular history is full of people made in the image and likeness of God, down through the centuries, living in various time periods. Black people, white people, red people, yellow people, brown people, people in the Americas, people in Europe, people in Asia, people in Africa, all different, but all having one thing in common. That is, they want to be free. History is nothing but the story of people running away from the slave master, and away from the dictator, and away from the oppressor, and away from the tyrant, and towards freedom. 2020 is different because it's been the year of the first generation in all of history that the world has ever produced that actually is running away from the freedom and towards the slave master, towards the dictator, towards the oppressor, towards the tyrant, arms wide open crying, "Please protect us, please feed us." Waving this type of white flag and surrendering to the tyrant is self-hating, it's suicidal, and I do testify before you in the sight of God and all the angels in heaven that nothing good will come of this pacifist, appeasing behavior. For 2,000 years, the Christian church has faced the tyrant's brandished steel. We've faced the lion's gory mane. We've faced the fires of 1,000 deaths on every continent, wherever we've been located. We've been imprisoned. We've been denied our rights. We've been beaten, starved, drowned, crucified, bullied, intimidated, tortured, lied about, dragged through the streets, fed to the lions, murdered in government-run hospitals. As part of our history and heritage and culture, it goes with the territory. It always has been. It always will be. It's who we are. Yet, brothers and sisters, here's the difference. In centuries past, whether it's been a king or an emperor or a ruler or a monarch or a chief or a sultan or a caliph or a shah, an ayatollah, a prince, a queen, whatever world leader has risen to power and opened their fat mouth and flapped their lips, daring to tell the body of Christ what they can and cannot do, where they can and cannot meet, whether or not they even have the right to meet, the Christian response has always been, you better arrest me, you better kill me, you better do something, because no heathen politician will bark orders at Christ's bride on my watch. In a very short amount of time, we've went from Athanasius saying, it is I against the world, single-handedly rescuing the Trinity from Arian cultists. We went from Martin Luther saying, here I stand, I can do no other, so help me God, as he tries to get the Bible into the language of the people and in their hands, setting fire and giving rise to the Protestant Reformation. We went from Ulrich Zwingli dying with the sword in his hand, defending the Bible against the Roman Catholics, murdered because he refused to pray to Mary. We've went from Dietrich Bonhoeffer, arrested for going on the radio and denouncing a government takeover of Christian churches by the Socialist Workers' Party. We know them as the Nazis. The socialists, or the Nazis, put Bonhoeffer into a concentration camp for a while till they found out he was preaching and he was converting other prisoners, and he was even converting some of the Nazis. And they ended up taking him out of the concentration camp, gave him a fake trial, stripped him naked, and hung him in the public square. They hung him naked. As he was walking towards being hung, his final words were, "For me, this is the beginning of life." Brothers and sisters, that's power. To go from 2,000 years of that style of Christianity to, "Your wish is my command, Governor. We won't have church. We won't have Bible study. We won't have the prayer meeting. We'll let you call the shots. You tell us how many people can show up to the wedding. You tell us how many people can attend a funeral. You tell us how far apart to sit. You tell us how long we get to be in the sanctuary. You tell us to wear a mask." Hollywood couldn't write anything as silly and as messed up as what's happening in the American Christian church in 2020. If you think that God is magnified and that Christ is glorified by the church leadership in 2020, laying the freedom of God's people at the feet of tyrannical, secular, governmental leaders, by the church leadership in 2020, forfeiting the independence and autonomy of God's house to the governmental leaders in order to be protected from a flu that has a 99.98% survival rating, let me just settle the issue for you right here and now. It does not please him. It displeases him, and it makes him angry. Flu or no flu, the governor of Minnesota lacks the authority to interfere with your freedom of religion, and I declare that he lacks the education and the competence to declare my God, my faith, my Messiah, my Bible, and my brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ as non-essential. He's in serious error, and our appeasement, our bowing down to his unwarranted power trip must stop in 2021. When the ball drops to ring in the new year, one of your resolutions needs to be to provide an equal and opposite civil disobedience to this garbage. The church must arise. She must put her armor on. The church militant, the church triumphant, the church expectant. All right? I don't mind if you're on your knees to obey God, to serve God, but please get up off your knees when it comes to obeying and when it comes to serving the governor. That's all that I hope to say from a negative standpoint. I appreciate you tolerating it. We only have the freedom to worship because we sit on the shoulders of the Christians who came before us down through the centuries, who paid for this freedom with their blood. They sacrificed. They endured conditions that we don't even have the strength to endure. Let's not be that generation that throws it all away, I beg you. This stuff had to be said. Someone right now is hearing this and wants to choke me. Someone else is saying, "Ooh, I've been waiting for a preacher to say this for a year." It doesn't make sense today to somebody, but 20 years from now, it's going to make a lot more sense, I promise. In the book of Isaiah,